Right now, as you watch this video, somewhere in the South China Sea, a Chinese dredging ship is pumping sand from the ocean floor, piling it onto a coral reef and turning it into something that should not exist. Not a natural island shaped by millions of years of geological forces. A man-made island, engineered from scratch, built in waters that don't belong to China, armed with missile launchers, radar systems, fighter jets, and enough military hardware to make your head spin. And this isn't just one island. China has built more than 7 of these artificial landmasses across one of the most contested stretches of ocean on the planet, spending an estimated $60 billion in the process. That is more than the entire annual military budget of countries like Australia or South Korea. That is more than what most nations spend on their entire defense infrastructure in a decade, and China spent it building islands out of sand and coral in the middle of the ocean. Now, before we dive deep into this story, if you are someone who loves uncovering the hidden strategies behind global power moves, the kind of content that mainstream media barely scratches the surface of, then you are in exactly the right place. Make sure you are part of this community because what we are about to reveal today will fundamentally change the way you see the world map. This is a story about ambition, deception, international law, military strategy, audacious land grab of the 21st century. And by the end of this video, you will understand not just what China built, but why they built it, how they got away with it, and what it means for every single person on this planet. So settle in. This is going to be a deep one. Chapter 1. The South China Sea Problem. To understand why China decided to spend $60 billion building islands in the middle of the ocean, you first need to understand the South China Sea itself. Once you see the numbers, you will understand why every major power on Earth is obsessed with this body of water. The South China Sea covers roughly 3.5 million square kilometers. That is larger than the entire Mediterranean Sea. It stretches from the southern coast of China all the way down to Indonesia, bordered by Vietnam to the west, Malaysia and Brunei to the south, and Taiwan to the north. More than a third of the entire world's shipping passes through this sea every single year. We are talking about over $5 trillion worth of trade flowing through these waters annually. Oil tankers, container ships, cargo vessels carrying electronics, clothing, raw materials, food, energy, running passes through the South China Sea. If someone could control this waterway, they would essentially hold a choke point over global trade. They could dictate terms, they could threaten supply chains, they could project power across the entire Indo-Pacific region. But here is the problem. China does not own the South China Sea. Under international law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, HON or UNCLOS, countries are entitled to a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone extending from their coastline. They have rights to fish, drill for oil, and exploit resources. Beyond that zone, the waters are considered international. China's coastline does border the northern edge of the South China Sea, but the vast majority of the sea lies hundreds and even thousands of kilometers from the Chinese mainland. These waters fall within the exclusive economic zones of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei. China has no claim to these areas, but China does not care about reasonable interpretations. In the early 1950s, China declared that everything within this line belonged to them, based on what they called historical rights. They claimed that Chinese fishermen and sailors had used these waters for centuries. The problem is that this claim has no basis in modern international law. In 2016, an international tribunal at The Hague that China's 9-dash line was invalid and that China had no legal basis for claiming the vast majority of the South China Sea. China's response to this ruling was simple and blunt. They said the tribunal had no jurisdiction, and they kept building. This is where the story gets truly fascinating and truly alarming, because China knew that simply drawing a line on a map was not enough. Lines on maps can be challenged, redrawn, negotiated away. If China wanted to truly control the South China Sea, something that could not be argued away in a courtroom, And if nature did not provide that land, China would create it themselves. Chapter 2. Operation Sand Castle. The engineering behind China's artificial islands is genuinely staggering. Even if you disagree with everything China has done politically and militarily in the South China Sea, you have to acknowledge the sheer scale of what they accomplished from a construction standpoint. It is unlike anything the world has ever seen. The process begins with dredging. China deployed some of the largest and most powerful dredging vessels ever built, including the Tianjinghao, a ship capable of sucking up enormous quantities of sand, silt, and coral from the ocean floor and pumping it through massive pipes onto a target location. Imagine a floating vacuum cleaner the size of a football field, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is essentially what happened across the Spratly Islands and the Paracel Islands, starting in earnest around 2013 and 2014. The scale of the dredging operation was almost incomprehensible. At Fiery Cross Reef alone, China transformed what was essentially a submerged rock formation into a fully functional island covering nearly 3 square kilometers. They moved an estimated 16 million cubic meters of sand and coral. To put that in perspective, that is enough material to fill more than 6,000 Olympic swimming pools. And Fiery Cross was just one of 7 major reefs that China transformed. At Mischief Reef, another massive landmass emerged from the waves. Hughes Reef, Johnson South Reef, Gavin Reef, Quarteron Reef, all of them went through the same transformation. Submerged coral formations that had existed beneath the waves for thousands of years were suddenly, within the span of just 2 to 3 years, turned into fully formed islands with buildings, roads, ports, and runways. Now, here is something most people do not think about. Have you ever wondered what happens to the ocean ecosystem when you dredge millions of tons of coral and sand from the seabed? These reefs supported thousands of species of fish, shellfish, sea turtles, and other marine life. They served as nurseries for commercially important fish species that millions of people across Southeast Asia, and the damage is essentially irreversible. Coral reefs take centuries to grow, but China was not building these islands for environmental research or tourism. The moment the sand settled and the concrete started pouring, the true purpose became unmistakably clear. Once the islands were above water and stabilized with concrete seawalls and reinforced foundations, the real construction began. And this is where the $60 billion price tag starts to make sense. On Fiery Cross Reef, China built a 3,000-meter-long runway, long enough to accommodate every military aircraft in the Chinese arsenal, including heavy bombers and large transport planes. They built aircraft hangars capable of housing 24 fighter jets. They installed radar domes, satellite communication arrays, and electronic warfare equipment. They constructed deepwater ports capable of docking naval destroyers and supply ships. They built barracks, administrative buildings, basketball courts, gardens, desalination plants, and power generation facilities. Fiery Cross Reef went from a submerged rock to a fully self-sufficient military base in roughly 3 years. The same pattern repeated across the other islands. Subi Reef got its own runway and military installations. Mischief Reef was fortified with anti-ship cruise missiles and surface-to-air missile systems. The smaller reefs received radar stations, communication towers, and close-in weapon systems designed for point defense against incoming missiles and aircraft, or for navigational safety and to assist passing ships. Underground storage facilities believed to house munitions and fuel reserves. Radomes housing advanced radar capable of tracking ships and aircraft across hundreds of kilometers. Each island was a fortress. Chapter 3. The strategic chessboard. So now we know what China built. Massive artificial islands armed to the teeth with advanced military hardware. But the real question is why? Why would China spend $60 billion and risk international condemnation to build military bases on artificial islands in disputed waters? The answer lies in strategy, and it is far more sophisticated than most people realize. The South China Sea is not just a shipping lane. Beneath its waves lie enormous reserves of natural resources. Geological surveys estimate that the seafloor contains approximately 11 billion barrels of proven oil reserves and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Some Chinese estimates place the potential reserves far higher, possibly rivaling the oil wealth of the Persian Gulf. For a country like China, which imports more than 70% of its oil from overseas, securing access to these undersea energy reserves is a matter of national survival. Every barrel of oil that China does not have to import from the Middle East or Africa is a barrel that cannot be cut off by a hostile naval blockade. But energy is only part of the equation. The South China Sea is also one of the richest fishing grounds on the planet. It produces roughly 12% of the global fish catch annually. For the hundreds of millions of people living in coastal China, these fisheries are not a luxury, giving them enormous leverage over neighboring countries. And then there is the military dimension. What would happen if a conflict broke out between China and the United States over Taiwan? This is not a hypothetical question. American aircraft carrier strike groups would need to transit through or near the South China Sea to reach the Taiwan Strait. And this is where China's artificial islands become devastatingly effective. The islands create what military strategists call an anti-access and area denial network, or A2AD. The radars on these islands can detect approaching ships and aircraft at extreme range. The anti-ship missiles can target vessels hundreds of kilometers away. The runways allow China to deploy fighter jets and surveillance aircraft without relying on distant mainland bases. China has turned the South China Sea into a militarized zone where any hostile naval force would face a gauntlet of missiles, radar tracking, and air patrols just to get through, would have to pass within range of multiple island bases, each one capable of launching coordinated attacks. Even if the islands themselves could be destroyed in a full-scale conflict, the cost of doing so in time, ammunition, and risk. The islands also serve a peacetime purpose that is equally important. By establishing a permanent physical presence in the South China Sea, China creates what international relations scholars call facts on the ground. Chapter 4. The world reacts. When satellite images first revealed the scale of China's island-building campaign in 2014 and 2015, the reaction from the international community ranged from alarm to fury. The Philippines, which has the most to lose from China's expansion, filed a case with the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. The United States ramped up freedom of navigation operations, sending warships through waters near the artificial islands, but despite all the protests, the rulings, the diplomatic notes, and the freedom of navigation operations, and this reveals a fundamental truth about international relations that many people find uncomfortable. The Philippines does not have the military capability to challenge the Chinese Navy. And the United States, while it has conducted freedom of navigation operations, has stopped short of any action that might directly escalate into military conflict with a nuclear-armed China. China has exploited this dynamic masterfully. They understand that no single country in Southeast Asia can stand up to them alone, and they have worked diligently to prevent the formation of a unified coalition against them. China is the largest trading partner of virtually every country in the region. The economic ties are so deep and so vital. The Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia face an agonizing dilemma. Challenge China too aggressively on the South China Sea, and they risk devastating economic retaliation. Accept China's expansion, and they lose their sovereign territorial rights and the resources within their own exclusive economic zones. The United States has tried to rally these countries into a unified front through initiatives like the Quad. The US, Japan, Australia, and India, and through bilateral defense agreements with the Philippines and other regional partners. American warships regularly sail through the South China Sea, and American surveillance aircraft patrol the skies overhead. But there is a vast difference between sailing a destroyer past an artificial island and actually forcing China to dismantle its military installations. The United States is not willing to go to war over these islands. Some analysts argue that China's artificial islands are actually quite vulnerable in a real military conflict. They point out that fixed island bases cannot maneuver or evade. They are sitting targets for cruise missiles and precision-guided munitions. In a full-scale war, the United States could potentially neutralize these islands within hours. They built them to change the calculus, to raise the cost and risk of any military action in the South China Sea, and to establish a peacetime dominance that slowly but steadily erodes the existing international order. China has also been building what strategists call a cabbage strategy around disputed features in the sea. This involves surrounding a contested reef or island with layer after layer of Chinese vessels. Chapter 5. What comes next? So where does all of this lead? What is the endgame for China's artificial island strategy, and what does it mean for the rest of the world? In the short term, China shows no signs of slowing down. If anything, the pace of construction and militarization has increased. Recent satellite imagery has revealed new construction activity on several islands. China has also been expanding its presence beyond the Spratly Islands, with increased activity around Scarborough Shoal, that sits just 220 kilometers from the Philippine coast. If China builds an artificial island at Scarborough Shoal, it would complete a strategic triangle with Fiery Cross Reef and Subi Reef, giving China radar and missile coverage over virtually the entire South China Sea. There are also growing concerns about what these islands mean for the future of Taiwan. If China decides to move against Taiwan, the artificial islands in the South China Sea would serve as forward operating bases, extending China's military reach far beyond its mainland coast. Aircraft operating from these islands could provide air cover for a naval operation against Taiwan. Missiles launched from these islands could target American bases in the Philippines or Guam, and the A2AD network created by the islands would force any responding naval force to fight its way through a gauntlet of threats before even reaching the Taiwan Strait. The diplomatic landscape is also shifting in concerning ways. China has proposed a code of conduct for the South China Sea with ASEAN nations, but negotiations have dragged on for years with little progress. Critics argue that China is deliberately stalling these negotiations, using the talks as diplomatic cover while it continues to build and fortify its islands. The environmental consequences continue to mount as well. The destruction of coral reefs has disrupted fish migration patterns and reduced fish stocks across the region. Fishermen from the Philippines and Vietnam report declining catches in areas where they have fished for generations. The loss of reef ecosystems also makes coastal communities more vulnerable to storms and typhoons, as healthy coral reefs serve as natural breakwaters that reduce wave energy. In pursuing its military and strategic objectives, China is undermining the food security and environmental resilience of the very nations it claims to want as partners and friends. China has installed extensive surveillance systems across its artificial islands, including advanced radar networks, electronic signals intelligence equipment. These systems give China an unprecedented ability to monitor everything that moves in the South China Sea, from military vessels to commercial shipping to individual fishing boats. Some analysts believe that China is building toward a comprehensive maritime surveillance network that would give it real-time awareness of every vessel and aircraft operating in the region. This level of surveillance would represent a fundamental shift in the balance of power, giving China information dominance over a body of water that the rest of the world depends on for trade and commerce. What China has done in the South China Sea could serve as a template for other ambitious nations around the world. If a major power can build artificial islands in disputed waters, arm them with advanced weapons, and face no meaningful consequences, what is to stop other countries from doing the same? The precedent that China is setting could undermine the entire framework of international maritime law that has kept the oceans relatively open and free for decades. If might makes right in the South China Sea, then might makes right everywhere.